Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. It is almost 2024, and I felt like it is the perfect time to record a video about how to get into Flesh and Blood in 2024. So, Flesh and Blood is a competitive card game. It's a trading card game in which you play as a hero against your opponent who's also playing as a hero. Currently, there's, I think, almost 20 heroes or maybe more than that to play as. And the goal is to reduce your opponent's life points to zero, their health to zero. You do this through combat. Each turn, you draw 4 cards, and then you are attacking or defending with those cards. Almost every card can either attack, defend, or be used for resources. So every card is very modal, and you're trying to basically use your 4 cards to defeat your opponent through their 4 cards. Obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that. You can store 1 card in your arsenal for later. You can build a board state for additional power. There's lots of things can do. It's not just throwing 4 cards at 4 cards forever. It gets a lot deeper than that. But the basis of the game is a kind of fighting game style card game where you are just battling. You get a bit weaker as the game goes on. You start with a bunch of equipment and weapons, and you're going to be blocking with those equipment and weapons and losing them. So your deck actually gets slowly weaker and starts at full power, which is kind of the reverse of a lot of other games. And yeah, it's just very fighting game style, throwing punches at each other, blocking, and until someone comes out on top. Because of the way that resources work, where you pitch a card, you take 1 card from your hand, you put it into your pitch zone to use as resources. After your turn ends, you put the pitch card on the bottom of your deck. You'll see your cards again if you use them for resources, which allows for a really cool system called pitch stacking, where you intentionally pitch certain cards together so that when your deck cycles through a second time, you'll see your clumps of 4 in a specific order to make very powerful combinations of cards. So, yeah, the game has a lot of depth to it. It also has probably the most support for entity card game at a competitive level right now. There's I think 1.5 million US dollars up for grabs in 2024. I think that's bigger than any even digital card game probably. It's a huge competitive format. There's like 1,000 players at almost every major event, like a Pro Tour or a World Championship. And yeah, if you're really into competitive games, I think this is the one for you. If you're into more casual games, I'm not sure if it supports casual as much unless you just want to play at your kitchen table. But it is really built on the competitive side. So let's get into it. There are 4 main formats in Flesh and Blood. There's 2 constructed, where you are making your deck beforehand, and 2 limited, where you're opening packs to build your deck. So Classic Constructed is the main format of Flesh and Blood. It is, yeah, the premier format. It's what basically every tournament is based on. And yeah, it's really fun, and the games take 30 to 50 minutes, but it can be pretty complex. You start with a 60 card deck ish, and then you have 40 life. So the games take quite a while, and they can be, very detailed. Whereas Blitz is the more casual format. It's only 10 to 15 minutes. You start with only 40 cards instead of 60. You start with only 20 life instead of 40, so everything's a bit faster. The games can be a bit swingier because with only 20 life, you can die a lot easier off of a really strong turn from your opponent. But I think it'll give you the best taste for the game if you're trying it out for the first time. Yeah, it's really fast and fun games. You can try out a bunch of different heroes at once. And yeah, I think it's the best way for new players to get into the game. And then we have the 2 limited formats. Of course, these are when you're opening packs to build your deck. Sealed is when you open 4 to 6 packs, depending on what set it is. Then you build your deck from that. Booster Draft is where you pick 1 card and pass it to your left and then to your right, and then you're picking cards like that. So Booster Draft is a bit more complicated because you have to make, like 45 different individual decisions while you're building your deck. Whereas Sealed Deck is just completely random, what cards you get from the packs, which makes it a bit swingier, but yeah, it's better for new players because you don't have to make so many decisions like you do in Booster Draft. The 2, hardest, most premier formats are Classic Constructed and Booster Draft. Those are what are played at most World Championships and Pro Tours. It's a mix of like 6 rounds or somewhere between 6 and 8 rounds of Classic Constructed, and then 6 rounds of Draft. And that's the 2 kind of premier formats of the game. But Blitz and Sealed are the more casual formats, which are still great for casual players if you want to try it out like that. There are a few special formats. Most of these don't get played too often. The 2 you might see is Ultimate Pit Fight, which is the multiplayer format. It's quite fun if you're coming from something like Commander. This might be something you want to try out. And then Commoner is, yeah, all commons, so it's a pretty cheap format. It's not seeing a ton of play right now, but it can be quite fun if you want to play on a budget. Sometimes I see it played. But if you're going to your weekly armory, which is what we call the weekly local event in Flesh and Blood, it's probably going to be one of these four. Most armories rotate, at least the ones that I've been to, so they'll change one of these every week. Or if you're in a more competitive area, they might just stick to Classic Constructed all the time. But my local armory, at least here in Amsterdam, kind of switches every week which format we're playing. Okay, so now that you know about the formats, you kind of know a bit about the game, you have to figure out what hero you want to play. There are quite a lot of heroes in Flesh and Blood. This list looks like a lot. It is a lot, but it's not quite as many as you see here. This is the main unofficial website for deck building and everything. This is going to be the website you definitely want to use to look at everything information-wise. In Flesh and Blood, it's Fabrary. It has all the decks. You can go to tournament decks and see basically every deck that's won or top 8 at a recent event. You can, it's very detailed. You can build your own decks. You can favorite decks. You can look at events. There's so much information on here. You can see stats. Lots to go off, but what we probably want if you're coming to the game for the first time is the heroes page on Fabrary. So it looks like a lot of these are duplicates in the sense that young heroes are what are used in Blitz, Sealed, and Draft. So these are the 20 life heroes for faster formats. And then the adult heroes are basically identical to their young version, except they just have double the life. So while it looks like a lot of heroes, this Bravo Showstopper is identical in every way to this Bravo, except he has 40 life instead of 20. And you use him in Classic Constructed where it's 40 life, and he's used in Blitz, Draft, and Sealed. So it's not quite as many heroes as you see. It's still quite a lot. If you're looking at just young heroes, which include everything you could play in Blitz, for example, there's 37. So quite a lot right now. There is a system called Living Legend, which if you see I clicked here, I just added a bunch more. These are heroes that have won enough events that they're no longer legal for play. So I would recommend keeping this switched off so you don't accidentally play one of them. And that does happen regularly when there's a competitive season. Winning events gives heroes points, and then if they reach a certain point threshold, they're no longer legal for play. It's kind of the version of rotation that Flesh and Blood has. So there's no actual rotation. Cards don't ever leave the format unless they're banned. But heroes can hit Living Legend and then leave the format that way. So it's a pretty interesting system. There's a lot of debate over whether it's good or bad. I quite enjoy it, but that's not something I'm going to comment too much on here since there's a lot of debate around that system. I think it's pretty interesting. But on Fabrary here, you can click on heroes. You can learn about what set they're from, their play style, skill floor, skill ceiling, a little information here. There's a lot of useful links. You can look at their meta results, the most played decks, tournament decks that did well recently. There is all sorts of information on this website. I definitely recommend checking it out. And then there's similar information over on the Heroes section of the Flesh and Blood official website. Under game, under lore and then heroes, you'll be able to find all this, which is a bit more of the lore and flavor side of heroes. I think it mostly shows the adult heroes here, but obviously they're the same hero. And you can read about them, their highlights, see some of their cards. It's pretty cool. Definitely recommend checking out both of those. If you're a new player coming for the first time and you want an easy hero that'll help you learn the basics, you probably want to play a simple deck. I think the two best to learn, in my opinion, are Dash as an aggressive deck and Bravo as a defensive deck. So the Bravo is mostly blocking and then attacking with really large disruptive attacks to slow your opponent down. And Dash is just full gas. She burns through her deck really fast and tries to kill her opponent with damage before she runs out of cards. If you want an alternative aggressive deck, Fi is a pretty good option. He's a ninja, so he does ninja stuff. He attacks with a bunch of tricky moves. And those are kind of the three easiest new player heroes, I would say. I'm talking about Blitz here, but all of those heroes are also legal in Classic Constructed, Bravo, Dash Inventor Extraordinaire, and Fi Rising Rebellion. There are two versions of Dash right now. This one came out in the most recent set, Bright Lights. She's quite a bit more complicated. I would just stick with the original dash from the second set ever, Arcane Rising. So those are my recommendations for new heroes. I think I probably have on my channel budget, Bravo, and Dash decks. I don't know if I have a Phi one, but I'm almost positive I have a Bravo and a Dash one, so you can go check those out. Might be a little out of date now, but they should be pretty good still. So yeah, those are the heroes. A bit on how to pick one. Obviously, there's a lot of options, so you might just want to spend some time reading them, talk to your locals, and see what they recommend, and take it from there. But decks can be pretty expensive in Flesh and Blood. If we just go to Bravo here, look at his most recent tournament deck. It cost $820. If you go back in, yeah, for example, most recent Dash deck cost $490. So while $490 is a bit cheaper than $800, it's still not cheap overall. So if you want to really go competitive and invest a big deck, you probably want to try it quite a bit before you actually go for it. And so the best website for that is Talishar, talishar.net. This is Talishar right here. And this is the main website for testing. It's unofficial. The company that makes Flesh and Blood, LSS, does not want really any digital stuff. They want everything to be in the Flesh and Blood. That's the whole point of the game, in person, in Flesh and Blood. And so they don't support this officially, but they aren't taking it down because people put a lot of free work into this client. So yeah, you can play games. You can even do single player game if you just want to play against a robot and see how the deck works. So that's nice to do as well. You just paste the link from February. So if I want to go here and copy deck link to clipboard, and then I want to paste the link, do a private game in single player. Yeah, you can do open, or this is a classic constructed game. I can just create that game, submit the deck. Yeah, and then I can just start going from there. Pick my equipment. We'll do this. There's some pre-game stuff this deck requires, but not all decks require that. And then you can just start testing against this practice dummy and see exactly how the game works. So yeah, it's a very, very nice client. Takes a little bit to get used to, but this is how most people practice as well for competitive events. Not against a practice dummy, obviously, but against other people on here. But Talishar is the main online client for this game. There's no any official events run on here because, yeah, they only support in-person official events. But it's really helpful for learning new heroes, practicing, stuff like that, and it gets a lot of attention, which is awesome. So definitely check out Talishar. And yeah, that's kind of the main ways I would get into the game. Product-wise, they do have these really nice blitz decks that are playable pretty much right out of the box. They're not going to be the most competitive thing. Yeah, we can see, for example, History Pack 1 blitz decks here. These are pre-constructed blitz decks. I think they're pretty cheap, like $10 or $15, $12 for these. And yeah, they're pretty playable right out of the box, especially if you agree to play them against each other. They're going to be very balanced, so you can go pick them up with a friend, and for $12 each, play really fun games of Flesh and Blood. There's lots of options. I think almost every hero in the game has a pre-constructed blitz deck made for them as an official product. So yeah, you really can't run out of options there. Some armories even do a format of pre-constructed blitz deck, so everyone buys one and then plays that blitz deck at the armory. And yeah, that's the easiest way to get into blitz. Obviously, for limited, you don't have to buy anything except for the packs at the event. And then classic constructed is certainly the hardest to get into. You can buy budget decks, obviously, but if you want to play really competitive, it's going to be quite expensive. So it's the premier format, but it's kind of what you build up to. You want to start maybe with blitz and draft and sealed, and then see if you like the game. And then if you really enjoy the game, you can start building into like a budget classic constructed deck, and then slowly upgrading it to a full classic constructed deck. But I recommend spending a lot of time first when you get into the game, trying as many heroes as you can. Because when you really decide to pick a hero, you should put all of your practice into that hero. This game really rewards being a master of a hero, just like kind of fighting games. If you played Super Smash Bros. Melee or something, most people have a main and they just play that thing most of the time. And Flesh and Blood is basically the same. You usually have a character that you're really, really good at, and that's who you're going to put a lot of time into. A lot of the pro players do pivot pretty often when the meta changes, but they still put yeah, tons of time into practicing that hero when they finally pick them up. So that is yeah, how to get into Classic Constructed, how to get into Draft, how to get into Sealed and Limited, how to get into all of Flesh and Blood in 2024. We do have the next set, Heavy Hitters, hitting shelves February 2nd. Yeah, and definitely go to a pre-release for that in, I think, late January before it comes out. But thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to respond if you're trying to get into the game. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.